Order, roll call.
Prince,
Here.
Tolbert,
Here.
Yang,
Here.
Ballinger,
Here.
Jalali,
Here.
Naker,
Here.
Council President Brenmon.
Here.
7 present, no one absent.
We invite you to stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance if you would like and are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Consent agenda items 8 through 37 are before you for your consideration.
All right, it is my understanding that Ms. Prince would like to pull item 31. Is there anything else? 31. Is there anything else that should be taken separately this afternoon? All right, seeing none, Ms. Yang moves the balance of the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The consent agenda is adopted as amended.
It's 31. Yep, okay. That's in a second.
Item 31, Resolution 23-1339, authorizing the city to amend the HUD Section 3 Compliance Program Joint Powers Agreement.
All right, and Ms. Prince, you're seeking a 2-week layover on this item? A 2-week layover. So Ms. Prince, looking for a 2-week layover to gather more information and clarity. All right, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted. Item 38 is Resolution 23-1334, approving adverse action against a second-hand dealer motor vehicle parts and auto repair garage licenses held by Castillo Auto Repair, doing business as Castillo Auto Repair at 744 3rd Street East.
Okay, and Ms. Garda will begin on this item with the staff report.
Thank you. Council President Brenmon, council members, Teresa Scarda on behalf of the Department of Safety and Inspection. This is a request by the department for adverse action against the licenses held by Castillo Auto Repair doing business at 744 3rd Street East in the city of St. Paul. These licenses were the subject of an August 11th, 2023 notice of violation and request for imposition of a 10-day license suspension along with the standard $2,000 matrix penalty. By way of history, the requisite 2 priors are detailed in the resolution before you, so this is a request for the presumptive penalty. The August 11th, 2023 notice alleged that during a complaint-based inspection on June 7th, 2023, a DSI inspector observed and documented with reports and photographs violations of license conditions 2, 4, 7, and 9. After that incomplete inspection, DSI sent a correction notice to the licensed premises asking that the violations must be fully corrected on or before June 13th, 2023. DSI got another complaint on June 21st, 2023 regarding excessive vehicle parking as well as a June 26, 2023 complaint regarding employees working on the cars in the street and the sidewalk, blocking the streets with cars and leaving tires out in the open. DSI inspectors returned for re-inspections on June 28th, 2023 and observed violations of license conditions July 10th, 2023 and observed and documented violations of license conditions in July 11th, 2023 where they observed and documented violations of license conditions. After that, this adverse action was requested, and the August 11th notice of violation, that's a part of your packet, was sent out. All of the information, reports, and photographs are part of the packets and attachments to the resolution. On August 19th, 2023, the City Attorney's Office received an email from the licensee admitting to the facts, but asking to address council as to the presumptive penalty that was requested, which again is the 10-day suspension and $2,000 penalty.
Okay, so agreed to the facts, but wants to speak about the penalty.
Correct, and he is here.
All right, I appreciate that. Are there any questions for Ms. Garda about this matter? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, per Ms. Garda, the licensee is here to speak on their behalf. And welcome. On these adverse action, just so you know, we'll put our timer on for 5 minutes to give you a chance to share your perspective, and then we'll close the matter. So,
Hi,
thank you.
I'm Isaac Castillo, and I'm the license holder. But my father is here with me, and we're partners, and we do this together. So if you will allow me to have him speak up here with me.
Absolutely.
Hello, my name is Jerry Castillo. I'm Isaac's dad. So we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about it because when we know that we had a couple of things, but we wanted to address some things that were taken on the photos that were not accurate. So some of those things that we also wanted to bring up as well.
Okay, and if we could just pause the timer for a quick second. I just want to make sure, that's great. I want to make sure that your focus, we just heard from the attorney that you have admitted to the facts.
Correct.
And you want to talk about the penalty.
Correct.
And so just to make sure that you
stay there.
preserve enough time or reserve enough time to make sure that you get to that point.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, so some of the things that we do, I want to, there are some things that are facts, it's true. And so we admit to those things, but at the same time, we want to make sure that not all of it was proper. One of the things that we do want to admit is that some of the things that were done, because we are a mom and pop shop, it's a small shop, the property is only so big. You can only do so much on that property. So we admitted to some of the things. Some of the things that we want to dispute is the penalties. Because again, being a small business that we are and the location that it is, there's space, there's only so much things we can do on the property. We have all the base filled. We have to be able to do something outside so we can do it quickly because it's just a tire. We never do repairs outside. And some of the things that we wanted to talk about is that the penalty is that for being a mom and pop shop, being a 10-day suspension, that's going to take almost half of our income for that shop. And in the economy that we are in today, and we all know what we're leading to as of now, it's going to devastate our business. And so we're willing to pay the fine, that's okay. But the 10-day suspension is what we're really asking for the grace. We're asking that you guys take that into consideration. Being a community and the community that we're in on the east side, Dayton Bluff area, it's a low-income area. And we are a business that's low-income. We do used tires. So that's what the majority of our sales. So the community needs a place like that. They can't afford to go to Walmart, and they can't afford to go to Sears, Tires Plus or a big corporation like that. So they come to us. It's mom and pop shop. So that's why we're there. So it'll devastate our business if we were to close for 10 days. So we're asking the board if you guys can take a grace. We're willing to pay the fine, because we admit, but just that 10-day suspension is what we're saying, that there be grace upon our business.
great. Thank you very much for your testimony. Do you have something to add? He did a good job. Ms. Prince, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question for you, Mr. Castillo.
Yes, ma'am.
Senior. You said that you never repair cars off the lot, but it sounds like that is what we...
No, I think what they're addressing is the tires. See, what happens is that we have deliveries. They're used tires. There's companies that come and deliver our tires. And some of those photos are being taken while they're delivered in the daytime or during business hours. And even some of those photos, if you look at it, all the bay doors are closed. And they're coming and taking photos before, look at the time frame. We don't open up until 9:30 in the morning. The pictures were taken at 8:45. We're not even open. So some of those things are the deliveries that people come and drop off, we're not open. Some of those customers are outside waiting for us to open. We can't control the moving around if we're not there. And there has been where we have changed the tire. We admit that, but not repairing cars. That's done indoors. So if you look at the photos, there's only a tire being changed. There's never any auto repair being done outside.
I am concerned, and maybe this is a question for Ms. Scarda, is that those are facts that you had admitted to.
The ones that for the tire repair outside, but not admitting to the ones before we're open. How can we fix a tire if we're not there? Or how
But
can
are
we
the
control
are
traffic
those-
if we're not there?
Ms. Scarda, am I gathering that they're not admitting to all the facts?
Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Prince, I believe they are admitting to the facts. The information in the packet, obviously there are a number of violations alleged. I can certainly go through every one, but if you look through the photos in the packet, there is a picture of a gentleman in photo number 1. Perhaps I can get the overhead to work and show you what the pictures are that work with the violation, and that might help. There we go. So that first picture in photo 1 is someone changing a tire, or what I believe to be someone changing a tire. You've got someone else walking with the jack to change a tire. The other violations alleged, storage of vehicles on the lot, excessive parking. I can go through the notice and pull the other ones out. Tire storage, let's see, that's work inside. Tire storage, as you can see, there's tires up on this upper balcony. Again, upper balcony. Inspector took a really good picture there. These are some vehicles on the lot that were there more than 10 days, so the inspectors were there multiple times. Another one pertaining to that violation. This is a violation of, shows
What
not
time is that?
parking, 7:10 a.m. on 7/11/2023, not parking in accordance with the approved site plan. But as I'm going through, I'm not seeing, employee lease parking lot, parking the SUV on Maple Street. Again, nothing to repairing vehicles outside that I'm seeing here.
So if I may add, that those trucks,
Just give me 1 second, I want to flip through the rest of these. Parking on the street or alley. On the street, this white panel truck seems to be parked on the street a lot. But again, I'm not seeing anything consistent that would show repairing on the autos outside. Its tire is what I have pictures of.
I've been concerned about this business.
Sure.
Since you received the variance to go in, and you knew when you received the variance to be able to open the shop there, that there were some really strict rules that you had to follow. And you're on your second matrix penalty, and that requires the 10-day suspension. I think I need a little bit more clarity on some of this. I would like to lay this over for a week and do some checking with our attorney and
Yes,
probably
ma'am.
with you. It's been a problem property. It's been very difficult for neighbors.
yeah.
And I take that really seriously.
Well, so do we. And so what we did, we went to the neighborhood, we know who it is that it's been a couple of people. We addressed, introduced ourselves. We have made some adjustments. There hasn't been no violations ever since. We presented ourselves. Everything's been going good. But again, keep in mind, some of these violations that they're posting on us are not accurate because they're open before we were open. The box trucks are actually our trucks that we use to transport tires. So we park them on the property, but they're moved. So again, we want to make sure that there's clarity on those pictures as well.
All right, so I heard Ms. Prince
Yeah.
request a 1 week
1 week
layover in order
But
to get
awesome.
that kind of clarity, so we can continue to have this conversation over the course of the
Sure.
week and bring it
All
back
right.
next week for a decision.
Thank you,
All right.
thank you for your time.
All right, so there's a motion from Ms. Prince for a 1 week layover. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is laid over to September 13th. Item 39 is Resolution Public Hearing 23-183, adopting the 2024 operating plan for the Downtown Improvement District and imposing a service charge pursuant to Minnesota statutes, Chapter 428A. The public hearing was closed.
All right, and I believe we are getting a quick update from Bruce Engelbrecht on this item. at long last, and perhaps a vote today.
Council President Brenmo, and I can't promise this will be a quick update, but I'll try to read fast.
Welcome.
Council President Brenmo and council members, Bruce Engelbrecht from the Office of Financial Services, Real Estate Section. On the day prior to the August 16th public hearing on this item, an attorney for one of the property owners in the Downtown Improvement District submitted letters objecting to proposed service charges for 3 of the properties owned by the property owner. At the public hearing, staff requested that the City Council lay over the item for 3 weeks to review whether any of the objections might require the city to recalculate the service charges for these or other properties in the district. We have done so, and I'd like to briefly share with the council the objections and our response to them. The first 3 objections were common to all 3 letters. Number 1, that the downtown district provides no benefit for the proposed amount of money being charged and no increased level of service compared to city services normally funded through the city's general fund. Staff believe this objection is without merit. Since 2020, when the district was established, its staff and volunteers have provided services and activities focused on cleanliness and safety, communication, and public space activation. For example, the district street team, safety, and hospitality ambassadors have worked to address crime prevention for parcels in the district through a safety communications center and safety communications network, a foot patrol, and a bicycle patrol. In addition, the district street team has cleaning ambassadors who perform sidewalk sweeping and pressure washing, graffiti and handbill removal, and some trash removal. Each of the programs is designed to meet the goals of the district, which are to improve the safety of each individual assessed parcel in the district, to increase building occupancy and lease rates, to encourage new business development, and to attract ancillary businesses and services for assessed parcels within the district. Staff from the district could speak in detail about the level and effectiveness of these services, but the services are above and beyond the normal city services provided in the downtown by our police, public works, parks and recreation, and planning and economic development departments. Number 2, that the proposed service charge exceeds the amount needed to pay for any increased level of services. Staff also believe this objection is without merit because the district operating plan includes a budget that is sufficient to meet the service and administration needs of the district, and the service charges cover slightly less than 100% of those costs, with some additional resources being secured to fully fund the budget. Number 3, the city's revised public hearing notice, which city staff mailed on July 14th to all property owners in the district, provided no detail of the special service charges, and in addition, that the 2024 budget number for the district varied between 1.3 million on the notice and 1.299 million on the proposed service charge sheet. Staff believe this objection is without merit as well. While the revised notice itself did not provide details on how the service charge was calculated for each property, an attachment was included that did just that. It showed the unique calculation for each property based on building area and street frontage. Concerning the difference in total budget figures between the public hearing notice and the service charge summary sheet, the explanation is simple. The higher number is the total district budget. The lower number is the amount needed from the service charges, and the difference is $25,000, which the district intends to raise through additional voluntary contributions from exempt properties. Number 4, this objection was noted in 2 of the letters referring to properties with mixed commercial and residential uses. That is, that under the law authorizing special districts, residential properties are not subject to the service charge, but the city was charging for the residential areas within these properties. This objection is without merit because the residential areas for both of these properties were not included in the service charge. A 5th objection was noted in only one of the letters, namely that only one of several owners of one of the properties was sent the public hearing notice, and that by not sending the notice to all owners, any service charge against the property is illegal. Staff believe this objection is without merit because the city sent the notices to the owners provided by Ramsey County tax records. which is the official source for all owner and address information, and in this instance, there was only one owner listed for that property. So given the findings of city staff regarding these objections, staff recommend that the city council make a determination that none of the objections has merit, and that the council move to adopt the resolution to approve the 2024 operating plan and budget and related service charges for the St. Paul Downtown Improvement District. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Engelbrecht? All right, thank you much. Ms. Naker.
Thanks, Council President, and thanks so much, Mr. Engelbrecht, for that very thorough staff report. I have read staff's report, and I would concur with their analysis that the objections, the 5 objections that were sent in, are without merit for the reasons that Mr. Engelbrecht just mentioned, and for the reasoning that's before us in our record here. So I would move to approve the improvement district.
All right, so there's a motion from Ms. Naker on this item. Any further discussion? Ms. Prince.
I'm a little confused, and I probably should have asked Bruce this, but I thought that the people who have objected have withdrawn their interest in being part of the district, right? Or are we enlarging it in spite of their objections? So I guess I'm not clear what they were objecting to, because they had withdrawn their interest in being part of the district.
Council President, I can let Mr. Engelbrecht speak to that specifically, but this isn't about enlarging the district, but just adopting the operating plan for the district. We previously dealt with the question of expansion, and we did not expand the district because of the objection, but every year when we adopt the operating plan, the members of the district have the right to register objections, and the council has the right to make findings. So these are objections on the operating plan itself.
Okay. Thank you. That's adequate.
No, thank you for clarifying, because we've had a couple of these items.
Yep.
So.
Yep, and this has been before us several times and has changed. So, any further discussion on the motion to approve as amended by Ms. Naker? And that amendment would include the change district. Just to delete the additional area.
Yep.
All right, so no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted as amended. Item 40 is Resolution Public Hearing 23-214, approving the petition of Deanna Stepan on behalf of McAllister College to vacate the remaining public alley rights opened, dedicated, and platted in the block bounded by Grand Avenue, McAllister Street, Summit Avenue, and Cambridge Street. Public hearing was closed on August 23rd.
And Mr. Tolbert moves approval. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted.
Okay, before we go on to the next section, it is the ordinance section. I just want to share some baseline information with people who might be here for the first time or haven't been here for a while. Our city ordinance process requires that we read each ordinance 3 times. The first time when we read an ordinance, we typically get a staff report, kind of a lay of the land, and understand what it is that's in front of us. The second reading is what we call a public hearing, and that's where we take input from the public. If we have an issue that's contentious, or we have an issue an ordinance that looks like it's going to require some significant amendments, sometimes we lay it over for a few weeks to give us a little time. But when we have our second readings, often we'll see amendments before the public hearing, and then we'll hold a public hearing. At our public hearing, we invite community members and stakeholders to come up and share their perspective. We do run a timer for 2 minutes. It's not a lot of time, but that way we get through everyone's thoughts. But I will remind people that this council is happy to take phone calls, happy to take emails, happy to take walks around neighborhoods and hear your input. So this is not the only way to share your thoughts, but it is the public hearing. In addition, anything that's submitted to us in writing is included in the public record as well. This is always the anticlimactic thing. We'll have a public hearing and everyone shares their thoughts and they're worked up, and then we don't vote on it because we have to read it one more time. So no matter what happens here today, we will lay ordinances that are in front of us for a second reading over for a third and final reading a week from today. And we do them a little bit out of order. The first ones we'll hear are the final reading of some ordinances we've heard 3 times. Then we'll hear a first reading, and then we'll go to one ordinance that has a public hearing. I think most people are here to testify at that, so We'll go over some of the public testimony parameters before we do that, but just so people understand where we're going on this, for these next 5 items. I think it's good if we all know the process.
Item 41 is final adoption of ordinance 23-32, amending Chapter 310 of the Legislative Code to correct license fee tables and implement annual license fee increases.
All right, and this is before us for final adoption. Any final thoughts or conversation on this item? Seeing none, Mr. Ballinger moves approval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The ordinance is adopted. Item 42 is final adoption of ordinance 23-38, amending sections 411.01 and 411.04 of the Legislative Code to remove a reference to previously removed consent requirements and remove the requirement for a prospective licensee to provide off-street parking.
All right, and again, this is before us for final consideration. Mr. Tolbert moves approval. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The ordinance is adopted. Item 43 is first reading of ordinance 23-42, granting the application of York Avenue Land Development LLC to rezone property at 1500 and 1510 York Avenue from a combination of R4 one-family residential and RM2 multiple family residential to all RM2 and amending Chapter 60 of the Legislative Code pertaining to the zoning map.
All right, and this item, there's been a request to have our staff report the same day as the public hearing, so we will lay this item over for 1 week to public hearing and staff report.
Item 44 is a public hearing of ordinance 23-40, amending Title 23, Public Health, Safety, and Welfare of the Legislative Code to add Chapter 222, titled Smoking of Tobacco, Hemp, and Cannabis Products in City-Owned Public Places Prohibited.
All right, and this is before us for a second reading public hearing, and we, this item was laid over, I believe, almost 3 weeks ago now. We didn't have a meeting.
And this is an all-day live
all-day
alert.
live
I'm
alert.
Amy Hockert. We're breaking in to bring you some live coverage of a St. Paul City Council meeting. The council is hearing from residents on a proposal to ban marijuana and cigarette smoking from city-controlled properties. We've seen some cities do this already, like Duluth, but St. Paul would be the largest to do so. So let's take a listen.
Version 2, there's a version 2 in Legistar.
It's attached.
It's attached in Legistar. Just so people know, and I think other amendments will be coming in, many of them friendly from my colleagues around the table, but the ordinance that we put in a couple weeks ago was the starting point for this conversation. As I think most people are here to testify, it's a smoking ordinance. It applies to tobacco, vape, cannabis, and other legal smoking products, and regarding where people should be able to smoke or not smoke, and it's the act that matters and the smoking that matters, not the substance and not possession or not anything like that, that it's regulated. And I think that's important because smoking, unlike other things, when you choose to smoke, which is a legal thing and people have a right to do, they're also choosing to force other people around them to smoke as well. And I think that's what we're trying to regulate here and have the conversation regarding. So the amendment, the version 2, changes, it does still apply to parks. It takes out, based on feedback from my colleagues and community feedback, it takes out sidewalks and it takes out right-of-way. I should note that parkway streets will be treated as roads, not as city parks. So it applies to parking, or to the parks locations. And I know my colleagues have a few other amendments to come in. I think many of them will be friendly amendments, but I just wanted to start at that starting point. So.
All right, so the amendment that is attached in our Legistar system, the main changes are, can you just bullet point the main changes that are in that one more time?
It will allow smoking on sidewalks and in the public right of way, so streets and boulevards. And it would also regulate regarding being 25 feet within a building entrance there. But it allows smoking in quite a bit more places than was allowed prior.
All right.
But it still applies to the act of smoking, and it is across the board with tobacco, cannabis, vape, and other things.
All right. Okay, so I will look, so I will reiterate, do you want to say what you said to me earlier?
Yes, Council President Brenmoen and Council, from the City Attorney's Office, we're requesting that if you can come to a consensus, we would then take that consensus back and bring you a clean ordinance at the next meeting, just because we think trying to piece it together today will be difficult. So if we can come out of this with a consensus on what it should read, I'll take notes and we'll bring you back a clean version for the next meeting.
Okay, so the amendment that we're looking at from Mr. Tolbert maintains the no smoking in all of our city parks, but adds back in smoking being acceptable on sidewalks and streets, save 25 feet away from building entrances. Ms. Prince.
I'm confused by the amendment. It's city parks and certain building entrances. So those certain building entrances are not city-owned building entrances.
It's building entrances.
All building entrances.
And I think there might be some amendments to that as well, too.
Okay.
So this is a little bit complicated without a version 2 and a version 3, but I think since there's overlapping, there is an intent, perhaps Ms. Naker could move your amendment to Mr. Tolbert's amendment, and we'll move forward with what's been presented.
Sure. Thanks, Council President. And Councilmember Tolbert, thank you for your introduction of this new version and your openness to feedback on it. I really support the changes that have been made. I would like to offer a friendly amendment. The prohibiting smoking within 25 feet of entrances, exits, windows, and ventilation intakes of public places and places of employment, I think is very important to not allow smoke to enter into a building and violate the Indoor Clean Air Act. That said, I think it is important to mirror Ramsey County's language as the 25 feet mirrors the language to exempt proprietors of food establishments that want to establish patios or outdoor areas where smoking is allowed. So my friendly amendment, which should be in front of everybody in a physical copy, just copies Ramsey County's language to exempt proprietors of food establishments that want to set aside an outdoor dining or bar area signed as a smoking area, as long as that is not immediately next to a building entrance. So this would bring our ordinance completely into compliance in this respect with Ramsey County. So I think that's helpful.
Mr. Tolbert.
I'll accept that as a friendly.
All right, so with the modifications stated by Ms. Naker, that would be maintaining the no smoking in parks and adding in the ability to smoke on sidewalks and streets, save 25 feet away from buildings with exemption of the food establishments. Ms. Yang.
Thanks, Council President. I do have a question for our city attorney because I want to make sure I understand what it is I'm voting on. I appreciate you mentioning, hey, just come to a consensus. We'll come up with a clean version next week. But I think basically to me what that tells me is we are voting to amend the original ordinance. Okay, that makes sense. And I want to name, I feel really uncomfortable with that, especially with a room full of people who are here to testify. And there's, amendments that came in on very short notice that, definitely isn't inclusive of what we are going to be hearing from the people who are here testifying. Maybe they might come saying, sharing things that really resonate with some of the amendments that you all are bringing forth. Well, that's great, but some of them might come up and share things that are different, or also have even greater ideas that we can bring into our ordinance too. So I feel really uneasy with the vote around the amendment. I think what would be helpful is maybe having so I just want to name, I would be open to hearing what people's thoughts are, because I think that there's things that I see here in the 3 amendments in front of me where I'm like, okay, well, it seems like it'd be great for us to add that or approve those amendments. But at the same time, it's not completely aligned with what I would want to see too. And I will name something just give an example here. Councilmember Tolbert, in your amendment here, you have parks defined as including all of the public grounds, trails, and squares maintained as pleasure grounds and designated recreation areas by the city of St. Paul. That's not aligned with what I would want to see in terms of how parks is defined. What I have been hearing from people who have reached out to me is that they would want to see parks be defined more as what I see here on Councilmember Jalali's amendments, which is youth activity areas, which are city-controlled playgrounds, athletic fields, spectator viewing areas, and parent/supervisor resting areas. So that being said, I guess what I would love to hear from my colleagues is how do you want to move forward with it? Because I feel I'm not in a place right now where I'm ready to vote on amendments that came in last minute. This is something I want to do really intentionally and also make sure that I'm hearing from the people who are here and then from the people who also are not here too. So if we were to vote on this, it would be a no. I would be voting no. And I would be more than happy to connect with all of you so that next week we could come up with what seems to be more aligned with our council as a whole, and then also including the testimonies from today too.
I appreciate what you're saying, and I think that one of the challenges we often face in this situation is we would like to get public testimony on the ordinance that's closest to what is in alignment with the council. And so if we wait until after we hear public hearing, or then to vote on amendments, then sometimes people are inclined to testify about things that we're already comfortable changing, as opposed to spending their testimony either supporting where we're at currently or in opposition to where we've landed. We can continue to change and amend the ordinance after we hear public testimony. We can amend it next week if we want to. But I think the intent here, and I'm certainly willing to, this is unusual, so I'm certainly willing to look at it differently, but I think the goal in taking some of these amendments in advance of the public hearing is just for people to get an idea of where alignment is currently. But that doesn't mean that it's a final vote. Obviously we won't vote on it till next week or beyond if we have changes to make. So I guess it's not perfect, but in some ways that's a way to at least tee up where some of where things may be headed in. For example, I know that there's a pretty unanimous support for reducing penalties. So I would rather pass that before we went into public hearing so people understand that we've already voted on that piece and that we're going to move forward. But again, open to any sort of different process if that would make sense. Ms. Jalali and then Ms. Prince.
So to the point Councilmember Yang is making, and to clarify something I heard from CAO, are you saying right now your preference is that rather we vote on amendments, that we preview our amendments, but that we talk through them and get a consensus, then do the public hearing, and then you determine an ordinance based on that, or that we take votes on amendments now? That is something I'm not clear on based on what you said.
To be honest, my preference on when you vote on the amendments, it doesn't matter to me when you vote on the amendments. I think based on the comments we've heard, it would make sense to do the discussion initially and then perhaps a second discussion after the public hearing in case anyone has changed their minds.
So as a follow-up on that, to kind of reiterate what Councilmember Yang said, so there's language that I'm looking at that I understand the intention. I got it at 3:30. I don't know the implications of it. I want to understand it. If I have to vote on it right now, I'll be probably voting no, recognizing it does make some improvements that I see as needing to be made from the base ordinance, but I just don't understand what the implications in the direction are. So as far as that amendment goes, there's that, and then I can certainly bring my own and explain that. But that would be my position on what was just presented.
Ms. Prince, then Mr. Tolbert.
I think the issue I'm having with this question is that we went from an ordinance that people are showing up to talk about today that was city-controlled property. And so one of your changes, Councilmember Tolbert, is to remove sidewalks, boulevards, right-of-way, and parkways. And I think that is in keeping with how we define city-owned property. The issue that I have with adding employers or certain other building entrances is people who may not have known about the Ramsey County policy, who don't know that St. Paul is subject to the Ramsey County policy, are not probably here today. So we're going to be affecting a lot of private building owners who don't know that we're doing this. So at a minimum, if we make that change, I would think that we would need to continue the public hearing or, you know, be getting more information out there about changes that aren't within the purview of the city-owned property that we were originally setting out to clarify.
Mr. Tolbert.
Yeah, maybe I can make a suggestion. I think version 2 is the one that's before us right now. If my colleagues want to propose what their amendments will be, we could have the public hearing. People would comment on all the different amendments that will be out there, as well as version 2. I'd be happy to make a motion to lay this over, continue the public hearing until next week. I would just request, obviously this was laid over 2 weeks ago, I just request that if people are going to add additional amendments, that they don't wait till next Wednesday. So we're in the same situation. If we can get this in final form, and I'd be happy to go around and try and get consensus on where people are on the different amendments and one that can pass, and try and put that version forward by early next week. I'd be happy, and work with the city attorney's office to do that. I'd be happy to do that. That's been my goal the entire time, is to start this conversation and have people decide where we want to allow smoking in our city. And so I'd be happy to do that, but I would just ask people not to wait till next Wednesday to start working on their amendments.
Yeah, as the intent of the layover was to get amendments in advance and have those conversations in advance so that we could have a proposal to look at today. That's fine with me. I think if we want to go ahead and have a public hearing, recognizing, we know that there's a amendment that speaks to relaxing the restrictions that were originally placed, keeping parks, but letting the streets and sidewalks, which are the city's right-of-way, out of this amendment for now. It's a conversation. We've been a leader in secondhand smoke, and we've been progressive on this for many decades, not just a year, decades. And so that conversation can still happen, but I think that deserves more time. You're talking, so parks. There is some concern about with streets and sidewalks, what do we actually mean when it comes to building entrances, and we need to clarify that. And I previewed this, Ms. Jalali, I know, has an amendment for lesser penalties, basically voluntary compliance, that will be considered as well. Is there anything else out there that should be noted before we have a public hearing?
Councilmember Jalali, you have 2 amendments though, right? Could you maybe
I'm happy to just give the one sentence of each of my amendments. It's sounding like we will work towards incorporating those and decide. I would like to let the community speak, so I'm going to be very brief. I'm preparing to bring 2 amendments. The first is to narrow the scope of what's been proposed to mirror what is in our parks rules and regulations right now about tobacco. So right now, tobacco smoke in our parks is prohibited in what's called youth activity areas. That means city-controlled playgrounds, play areas, athletic fields, spectator viewing areas, and parent-supervisor resting areas. So in the spirit of following what is in place for tobacco, it simply strikes the existing language and replaces it with that. So that's what you'll see there. And then the second amendment takes the petty misdemeanor violation, it removes the petty misdemeanor enforcement, replaces it with what Ramsey County has as a smoking ordinance, which is the preferred method of enforcement is a voluntary request for compliance, like a verbal request, hey, please don't smoke here, that's not allowed, to issue an administrative citation, which is a local tool that needs to be developed, but is a much preferable alternative to the more severe penalty. So those are the 2 amendment concepts that I've prepared, but with that, I want to make sure that we get to hear from our community on all the above. So just for the record, those are the other pieces out there. Thanks.
Right. Okay, so we will have the public hearing, and the request from Mr. Tolbert is based on what we're hearing today and the conversations that we've had in these 2 weeks leading up to this, to get amendments prepared so that we can bring a clean copy of a consensus amendment version 2 in to look at next week, because we will be making substantive changes. At that time, we will have to have another public hearing and lay the matter over for another week. Mr. Tolbert.
And I'll just say, for at least Councilmember Jalali's amendment regarding the penalty, based on my conversation with colleagues and myself, I'm fully supportive of that. I think what we want here is compliance, not a penalty or fine, and in that. And I think it's just important that we determine what's allowed in public places, so that are shared spaces. I mean, obviously you can't drink booze and drink alcohol in parks and things like that, so we should think about regulating other things too.
Yes. Mr. Ballinger.
My concern is that we're talking about smoking and marijuana is just been legalized. And my concern is that I think we should hear more from our constituents, that so we don't look at these items as being illegal. We know that they may not be good for us, but neither is coffee or candy or pop. Some don't think you should eat pork. Some don't think you should eat meat at all. I think we need to talk to our constituents and find out what those of us who might enjoy a smoke, what they think is proper and what should be done.
Great. And I appreciate your thoughts there. And I've said a few times that one of the main roles of our council is to balance people's freedoms and their right to do what they choose to do with the right of the public and in public spaces to enjoy the space as well. And this, to me, is a conversation about smoke. Originally went in to looking at the ordinances to make sure that where it said tobacco, it said smoke. Because we are talking about cigars, we're talking about pipes, we're talking about vaping, we're talking about cannabis, we're talking about tobacco, and secondhand smoke has an impact, unlike candy and coffee, and on the people sitting next to you. So really just trying to figure out where that balance is, because I appreciate everything that you're saying, and I know that we all do. But we also know that there's a strong voice that says, I don't want smoke as part of my picnic experience. I don't want to have smoke when I'm walking around the lake. So how do we find that balance? And that's what we're here to do. And so I really appreciate that bringing that issue up, and I will just continue to say that I'm looking at this as how do we balance those two sides. So here's what we'll do then. We will have a public hearing. Again, I will invite people. I thought I heard like a little kid, a baby. If anybody has a youngster with them and really needs to get in the front of the line, I would really appreciate if people would yield to those folks that need to speak first. And what we'll do is have you come on up. We'll set the timer for 2 minutes. If you could introduce yourself. Let us know where you live. You don't have to give a street address, but just tell us what neighborhood you live in. When you're done testifying, there is a clipboard. Mr. Bastian is holding it up. There's one on either side of the podium, and if you could sign in with your address and your contact information. This is our public record and how we keep track of who was here to testify, if we have to follow up with you for a question, and for history books. So why don't, if people are here and they would like to speak, why don't we get started? And again, we'll look for people who have, welcome.
Hello. So my name is Kayla Fearing. I have been a resident of West 7th and St. Paul my entire life. I have also now rented off Rice Street. I've attended school on the west side of St. Paul, and I've played sports for Highland Park. This year, I played my 10th year in our St. Paul Rec League, in our slow pitch league, and I shared my summer drinking cannabis THC drinks with my alcoholic teammates and smoking joints with those who are smoking cigarettes at our St. Paul parks and softball fields. So that is why today when I come before you guys, I hope that you take my testimony extremely seriously, because I wouldn't be here if I didn't care about this topic. I've worked in healthcare my entire adult life. I've had knee, ankle, reconstructive surgeries, and I've also had a third of my lung removed in 2019, and I am a medical cannabis patient. I now have a healthcare consulting company called Healing Fear Consulting, where I specialize in patient advocacy and advocating patients on cannabinoids and available legal products here in Minnesota. I help patients get off opioids and pills and onto cannabis products. They use it for health issues just like most of us. Some may consider them social issues, but any use of cannabis in my mind as a healthcare worker is for medical use. I've been on public housing with this proposal. I would no longer have a safe space to consume my medicine. That I have a state issue prescription for. I've never seen a proposed ordinance for public drinking or drinking outside of Section 8 homes in my whole history of living in St. Paul, or outside of them, but yet I witness it every single day. Drinking alcohol have caused more violence than I've ever seen in St. Paul than cannabis ever has. I was also present at the truck park shooting back in October 21. A girl that I attended high school with actually died that night due to alcohol-fueled domestic violence. There were people actually smoking cannabis across the street at another business, and none of us erupted in violent behavior. This was before cannabis was even legal, and the residents of St. Paul knew how to act safe and appropriate and high in public. The drunks can't seem to behave. The cannabis community have been hosting public education consumption events since July 1st, and no police have been called to these events. Businesses like Maharajas and Grounded Gardens have been vocal about they would love to provide safe spaces while operating businesses in your St. Paul. But this proposal would destroy them, the local businesses who are providing a safe consumption as well as education. I've also worked in the Michigan cannabis industry, and tourism breeds cannabis.
You have to.
I will turn it up right now. So with tourism, if you guys want money to come to St. Paul, do not pass this proposal. I worked in Ann Arbor for 2 years, and they loved it. It was not inappropriate. People were kind. People had a great time in Ann Arbor using cannabis. No one was drinking in public anymore. Thank you.
Please sign in. So that was about 3 minutes, and I have the unenviable task of asking people to cut it off at 2 minutes. I hate to do that, but I want to make sure the folks that testify last have the same experience as the people in the front of the line, and we've got a lot of people to get through. I'm going to just put up my hand when you got about 10 seconds left to help you know when it's time to wrap up. I've been criticized for being rude for doing that. I'm just trying to be helpful, but to make sure if you look at who's back there, thank you for being here.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Alexis Bylander. I live on Brimhall Street, and I want to thank the entire council for considering this ordinance today. I live in Ward 3 with my husband, 2 young daughters, one's with me today, and we all love the city of St. Paul.
Can you just pause? We literally cannot even see your kids. You just said my 2 young daughters, and I was like, what are you okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We all love the city of St. Paul and St. Paul parks. Maddox Park and Boyd Park are our current favorites. We're fortunate to live in a single-family home with a yard. It's the size of a postage stamp, as my dad would say, but we appreciate it and we're lucky to have it. But for us and many other St. Paul residents that have limited outdoor space at home, or for renters that live in multi-unit buildings with no dedicated outdoor space, we don't just enjoy St. Paul parks, we need them. That's where we go when we need to get out of the house. That's where we go for picnics, play dates, birthday parties, and walks. And certainly the pandemic highlighted how essential safe open spaces are for our physical and mental health. I'm so grateful that my representative on the council, Councilmember Tolbert, is advocating to prevent smoking of any substance in parks. This is important to me as a parent and as someone who worked in public health for 10 years. I want to be clear that I strongly support increasing access to cannabis. Many people find a benefit in using it, and it's beyond time that we provide legal access to it in a variety of forms. But that doesn't mean I support smoking in parks. Just because a substance is legal doesn't mean it can be used anywhere. Smoke is smoke. There are stacks of research that say smoke of any kind is harmful to our health. And after enduring months of poor air quality due to the Canadian wildfires, I have an even greater appreciation for safe, clean air. St. Paul has put so much time and energy into protecting the health of residents by limiting exposure to secondhand smoke, and those wins for health were hard fought, and we can't turn back. Please vote to prevent people from smoking anything in our parks, and thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks for hoisting your daughter. It's nice to have young people in the chamber. Welcome.
President Brimont and council members, my name is Damone Presley. Good afternoon. I'm a St. Paul resident and the leader and program director of Vision and Living Life Changes Possible. It's a Building a Healthy Lifestyle program that works with our young people. The youth I work with have been leaders in educating the community about harm and commercial tobacco. They have worked hard to help pass many tobacco prevention policies over the years, including ending the sale of flavored and menthol tobacco in St. Paul and several Ramsey County communities. I fully support St. Paul spaces as being smoke-free. As a father or uncle, community leader, and a caring adult, it seems always I have kids touring around. We go to the community parks multiple times throughout the week, the Jimmy Lee Center, MLK, Frogtown Rec Center, to get our energy out, let loose, laugh, and have fun. My kids need and deserve to have a safe and healthy space in the city where they enjoy being kids. So while some people are trying to find places for adults to smoke, I'm trying to find safe spaces where our kids can have fun. I also work in recovery work. I'm concerned for those that have battled addiction and further be triggered to relapse with the increased public use. This is about health and compassion, not a right to smoke or vape wherever you please. Plus, the new state law made it legal for adults to use cannabis in several ways, including edibles and drinks that don't expose others to secondhand smoke, excuse me, or ozone. Smoking in public and exposing everyone to SHS is not okay, and it's just not necessary. One final reason it's important for me is that the tobacco industry targets communities of color and low-income communities. I want to be on time. I don't want nobody jumping on me, so thanks for letting me share.
Before you go, would
Yes.
your friends like to introduce themselves quick?
Katie, say your names.
Demaya. Didera. Angel. Jalen. Jaden.
Right on.
So we had smoke all over the place. I don't have no fun. So, and that was Angel. Say your name.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council. My name is Jack Fisher. I